Good morning. So today's panel is a little bit of a different style than what you saw yesterday. This one is interactive, which means if something comes up that you hear that feels relevant to you and your curiosities, you can flag Pete over here down with the mic and actually speak with the panelists on stage. So we're really looking forward to having some push and pull conversations with all of you this morning. There was something that came up at least twice yesterday that I heard on stage, and we've been talking about for far longer than that, which is personalization. And I don't want to scare anybody with this buzzword because we're aware that we are very much not there yet in terms of any level of personalization that we have achieved within interactions with customers in the travel industry. But today, I want to start by going around and getting a picture of why is this so hard? What are the challenges realistically that we're facing, and how did we get in this situation where we've been talking about this for years and years without really seeing the progress that we've been expecting? I'll start right here with Sindhu.
Yeah, I think the challenge lies in personalization is because we're not collecting enough information from customers, and the customers really don't know what that information is going to be used for. And there are so many siloed systems that are currently sitting that every system has different level of information. And hence to bring them all together becomes a challenge from a personalization perspective. Customers want, and they're very worried about what we're going to do with that information and how that personalization is going to get used. And I think that's where the challenge lies. I think it's a lot about educating customers in terms of what is it this information will help them, what does it mean for them to be able to kind of create that personalization and better customization for customers there. That's where I understand from the challenges that we're facing in trying to get together everything from a personalization perspective.
All right, a lot of themes touched on there. So we have the customer trust in the data component, we have the collection component, and then we have this aggregation processing component.
So there are many elements to that, right? And that's where it becomes more difficult to do the whole personalization bit.
All right, no big deal. We just have to resolve all three.
It is a big deal. It is a big deal, because all of them are equally complicated. So it's no straight answer. There's no like a straight answer to any of that.
Sure. And from the supplier side, how do you think about these problems?
Yeah, thinking about it from the airline perspective, maybe we have the opposite problem. We have too much information. So, if any of you think about going out and searching for an airfare, hotel, car, whatever it may be, when you hit search and you see that little wheel spinning, there's a ton of research that says if that wheel spins for more than a second and a half, you're out. Now, imagine you're an airline like us and you've got data on 40 million people, and you want to parse that data for you in a millisecond based on the little bit of information we know about you because you've logged in or whatever it may be, and then spit back exactly the right offer for you. Today, that process just takes way too long. Now, there are opportunities. I think when we think about personalization now, I think where we can actually get better at this is the period between when you book something and when you travel. So how do we set things up so in that in-between, when those milliseconds don't matter as much, we can actually talk to you in a way that is important to you about the things that you care about, that we know because it's in that data, and actually make those offers relevant for you. And so I think you'll see a lot more of that in the years to come. And AI is going to be one of those things that really helps us do this job so much better because you don't need as much human being involvement to actually go dig through that information.
So is the issue that initiatives are not being made internally to do something with that data, or the issue is that we don't quite understand what the customer preference will be based off of the data that's being collected?
So I can't speak for every airline on planet Earth, but I think the reality is there's a million ideas, and trying to parse those down to the few that actually make the most sense and do it in a way that doesn't creep out the customer that you know this information about them, that is really a difficult problem because we don't want to do that. And so you want to be able to share relevant information, but it is difficult to make sure you don't go too far with that. And also, there's a million things going on. This is a really complicated industry, both air, hotel, car, tours, all of it. It's hard. And so there's 1,000 options that you could spend your time digging into, and this is one of them. And I think you'll just see more and more tests with this in the months and years to come.
Jeff, what are the biggest themes of this challenge for you?
So insurance is a lot different because we're a regulated product. Every product that we sell needs to be approved in 52 different jurisdictions, and the same product sold to the same customer in the same state has to have the same price. And so that's a challenge just out of the gate. But I'm with Neil on effective personalization doesn't have to be perfect. There's a lot of ways to create thousands of different insurance products, and making sure that in the 2 seconds you have to communicate what the product is and how it's important to your trip, making sure you have the most relevant data, your booking window, trip length, how many people are traveling, all of these elements really can dial in personalization pretty good. The other thing I'll emphasize is that personalization can start with these algorithms and these data points, but I think the service, the empathy, and the follow-through that comes with the product is as, if not more important than that initial sale, and that's what really creates loyalty, which I think is what people and companies are after when they're trying to personalize products. A great example is emergency medical care. A lot of insurers will say, hey, if you're sick while you're traveling, go find your doctor, pay it yourself, and submit a claim when you get back. But if you can make it a digital experience where that traveler can actually find their own doctor, or it's cashless, it's already paid for, that's a personal event. And that's a way to personalize products without having to do a ton of data or really having that time crunch that Neil was talking about.
So sometimes you're suggesting there will actually be better returns focusing on other initiatives that aren't just tailoring or personalizing the offers that
I think it's both.
Yeah. Okay, so how do you assess what is going to be an effective use of the customer data you do have access to personalize products further? What has ROI?
Yeah, I think for us, it's just a lot of testing and learning. I mean, we've got millions of different customers, and the thing that is applicable to customer group A, B, or C might not be applicable at all to D, E, or F. And so trying to figure out how you can run a lot of tests and learn from the information that's coming back to you, learn from surveys from customers, go out and talk to customers. For us, we go to airports and just watch customers interact with our products and services. All of that stuff leads to better outcomes in the long run for customers who are dealing with whatever the personalization of the day might be. But the other thing I think I've seen being in the industry for a long time is that the right answer today could be totally wrong 2 years from now. And so this is a continuous journey that's never going to end if people do it well.
All right, and that's a scary idea to put a lot of resource investment into something today that might lose its relevance in 2 years. I think I scared you with the term ROI. Tell me what you're thinking.
No, but that's true, right? Because everybody's first question is, what's the ROI on it? And like I said, there's no method to this madness. There is no like direct formula by saying you'll get it right. And like Neil says, what you tested today and tried today may not apply 2 years later, right? And with service providers like us who work across different clients, different segments, their preferences are very different. You know, everybody has a different preference in terms of how much personalization do they want to do. What customer demographics really needs personalization, and the one says, I want to talk to a human. I really don't want you to personalize anything for me. Let me just speak to a person, right? So I think it's that balance where you bring...
That is the most personal
experience, right? And when you don't have a customer who has no information with you, you straight away give it to a human. Let the human try and get that information from that customer so that you can personalize something for them. You know? So I think it's a very fine balance, and I think that ROI still needs to get justified over the course of time by saying that, okay, it may work today, it may not work tomorrow. So there are a lot of risks involved in terms of what you need to be able to, have the guts to do this and say, okay, it failed, and I'm going to try it all over again. So yeah.
Embrace.
Madeline,
yes.
I have a question from the audience.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Nice to see everyone today. I think, with AI and new tech being so prevalent in every single conversation, especially here at the latest conferences that we've all been attending, I just want to know your opinions about where we actually are on the curve in terms of making this interaction easier and smoother, because it just seems to me that it's sometimes just an awful lot of talk and still relatively sort of little action.
Okay.
Who would like to start?
I'll start with that. I think that a lot of these conferences, I think people are talking about the customer-facing AI, the agents, the travel agents that are all going to be AI, and I don't think the consumer is ready for that. I think that's why we're frustrated on why this isn't happening. And what we do see, what we're doing, is a lot of investment on AI on the back end. So it's impacting customer experience, but a lot of times they don't know it. They don't know that there's an AI agent when you call a customer service agent, that when you're asking, am I covered for this particular event, or how's my claim going, that there's an agent in the background going and finding information for the actual person on the phone to give them faster, more accurate answers. AI is being used in many insurance claims adjudication shops, so 65% of the claims that we do are going through an AI model that's recommending a decision on claims. The customer doesn't know that. All they know is they got paid in a day. And so there are a lot of investments that are happening behind the scenes, I think. Eventually, those two will meet, right, where the customer-facing and all of the work in the back office will meet, and it's coming soon. But I'm also not sure the consumer's ready for it, right? Especially when you're booking travel. It's a high-risk transaction, and I think they want advice. They want somebody to hold a hand and guide them, but they're not ready to use it to actually purchase. And I think that's kind of where we are.
Yeah, to me, this feels like 1998 all over again, for those of you who are around for those days.
Not like my 1990.
Yeah, well, in 1998, we all knew the internet was going to take over the world. Nobody really knew what to do with it yet, right? And so there were a lot of things being thrown against the wall to try to figure out what was going to be the future of this technology. And as some of you will remember, there was a bubble that burst in 2000 when a lot of those things didn't work out. But the things that came after that really did change the world. And so I feel like we're kind of in the same place with AI. There's a lot of things that are being tried, and I don't know which ones are ultimately going to be the most successful. I'm quite sure that some of these things actually will be, but probably we're all underestimating what the next generation is going to look like and how much impact it's going to have. But part of that story in 1998 was exactly what Jeff's talking about. There were a lot of consumers, there were a lot of people who were just not ready for that technology to really take over their lives yet. But give it 10 years and everybody was there, right? And so I think we're going to see a pretty similar trajectory here with AI from what we saw from that change. And so there are things that are happening now behind the scenes that I think, to Jeff's point, are actually having an impact. It's just less customer-facing today than it's going to be 5 years from now. And so part of this process for us has to be, how do we do that in a way that is embraced by the customer? How do we actually make their lives easier? How do we take stress out of the travel process? Because if you ask me what the single biggest problem with travel is, it's stress. If you go to the airport, watch people at the airport, they're stressed out, right? We can take that away from them by giving them more confidence that the tools that they're working with will help them out of situations that they're worried about. So I think there's a lot of opportunity here just to make travel a more pleasant experience for people. I don't know how much money that's worth in revenue to all of us who run businesses related to the travel space, but ultimately, if customers are happier, all of us are going to benefit from that. And so there's a real desire to see what tools we can go develop that will help do that job.
Well, it's an interesting take on the development curve, because I think there are so many companies that are truly concerned about being too late to the game in terms of the tech they're developing. But you're also expressing concern about being too early for the consumer readiness.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of consumers who are not quite ready for what this will be yet, or really understand what this is. I've had the job at American of being the guy to talk about NDC for the last 10 years, and I know, look, I already got booed, right? Like, nobody wants to talk about that, and I get it. I didn't want to talk about it that much either, but the reality was it's the technology behind the scenes that drives a lot of the outcomes that people actually do care about. I think AI is going to be the same way. There are going to be a lot of people who will never be all that familiar with how an API works or how a large language model works, but they want the outcomes that will come from that, and it's just going to take a little time for people to get there, but we're already on this curve. People are moving, so I think we'll see real jumps here in the next 5 years on this front.
What do you think about where we are on the roadmap?
I think, to add to the point that Jeff and Neil were talking about, I think what you have in control is what you can really work on in terms of the roadmap. And as a service provider, I can tell you, my agents have to be smarter, faster, better, more efficient to be able to give that information. So I have control on those kind of products and solutions, which I can really develop for them, and they're able to do better versus the customer-facing ones. So if they have all the information, all the right tools, the right access to be able to give the right information, I think a lot of that stress goes away from the whole system that we have. I think it's developing journey. The roadmap looks curvy, if I may say so, because
meandering.
Meandering, yeah. So it's starting at a certain point, and it can digress into different directions as we progress. But I think it's started on a good note. There is adoption. There is need for people to adopt it, and I see a lot of people asking for it. It's more like the buzzword, right? Everybody wants AI, but they're not ready for AI. Where are they on the journey to be able to identify that is very important before you really get onto the bandwagon.
Right, so everybody referenced the back-end technology in some fashion or another, but we also know that there are a lot of legacy tech systems that are still the backbone of so many travel-related companies. Are these two old and new technologies ready or able to speak to one another?
I mean, that's the beauty of a lot of these AI models
Yeah.
is they're back-end agnostic, right? If you can transform data, you can move data, you can train agents. The back-end systems aren't really important, and I think that's why it's starting to be adopted so quickly. You asked about where we are on the AI continuum and the journey to getting customer-facing AI technologies. I think we're a few years away from that, but we're moving really, really quickly. I think that's the big difference between the AI boom and what happened with the internet is that things are happening very quickly. So this curve is going to change immensely. I'm just think in the couple of years since OpenAI has really unveiled its large language model, just the advent of what we're talking about at these conferences has changed so quickly. That the speed of change is going to be immense.
So I'll answer your question with a yes and no. I think for
You love complexity.
That's right. Well, this is the right industry for it. So, I think for those of us who are running really complex back-end systems to run our businesses, there are going to be challenges with this. But there is one challenge in this industry that we have all struggled to overcome, and that is my back-end is complicated, Jeff's back-end could be complicated, car rental companies' back-end can be complicated, agencies' back-end can be complicated, and all of these systems don't talk to each other. What AI can do is sit in the middle of that and start to make these connections that have been really, really hard for us as an industry to do. You still, though, need the ability to interact within those systems. So let me give you an example. If an AI system gives you an offer, right? Makes you an offer on fly an American and you'll pay this rate and you'll fly between these points. Our old back-end systems still need to know what that offer was. There needs to be some way to capture that information because if you call in and you want to make a change to your flight or if you need a refund, we need to know how much money to give you back. So there are still a lot of very turgid logistical issues that have to be solved with systems that are, frankly, across the airline space, the hotel space, sometimes 30 or 40 or 50 years old. So that work still has to happen. That's going to get better too as technology improves. But I think the thing that's kind of blocked us for a while is that these old systems just absolutely don't talk to each other. And so having a tool in the middle who can do a lot of those connecting points for us and learn to share the right information into the back-end systems will open things up that have been so difficult to do for a very long time. So yes and no.
I call those the digital backbones, right? I mean, how do you connect the old and new, bring them all together? So I think those connectors which bring those digital backbones, which will really be able to kind of get the old and new together, is the way I see it, because there's no way out of legacy systems. There's tons of information sitting there. You will not let go of those, for sure. So, and nobody wants to.
Decades old, can't
Yes,
get rid of
yes,
them so quickly. But it sounds like you're looking forward to the AI technology playing more of this back-end interstitial role as it helps the systems communicate with one another.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Madeline, we have another question. Sorry, I'm still stuck on the data part. So personalization is all about data, and travel being an infrequent purchase, we might not understand the traveler in a detailed way. So my question is, do you think about or are you working on any innovative models that help you gather quality data about the travelers, which would help you better cater to their needs?
And I can give some data to back that up from our recent loyalty study, which is that I believe 56% of leisure travelers in that study only took 1 or 2 trips in their past 12 months, which is not too much data to go off of. So how do you approach trying to best utilize the data of people who just aren't giving you that many signals about what they want?
I think that's where the non-intrusive signals comes in. You know, the language, the location, their IP addresses, where are they actually based out of to be able to personalize that. That's where the data will come in. And a lot of it will be asking the questions, because a lot of time we're not asking those questions to the customers, you know, to know what those preferences are. They may not book in the next 1 year, but at least you've captured enough information in terms of channel preferences, what they want to look at, what are the kind of locations, is it a family trip, is it a leisure trip, what do they like to do on a holiday. If you have these conversations with customers, you'll be able to gather a lot more information, which is not getting captured today. You know, and it has to be through a survey, which typically I think a lot of airlines do today. Right after a travel flight, you will get a survey of saying some of them are really lengthy, and I personally am not a big fan of those. It has to be a little more shorter for me to be able to respond to that. But to be able to gather that enough information from customers, will be able to get that data in place. It may not be readily usable, but at least you've captured that data for future references.
Yeah, we have looked at this. It gives you a real inspiration to improve your loyalty program, even for people who aren't traveling very often. So when I started at American in 2002, I was in our loyalty group. And at that time, we had ways, if you were the sort of infrequent traveler, where you could earn a few miles and maybe you could use them for something. You could order flowers or make a donation to charity. But it wasn't a great program for those who travel once a year. And we have a lot of customers who only travel once a year, once every couple of years. Today, though, that's changed. And it's not true just at American. You're seeing loyalty programs just become more fluid. If you only have a few miles, you might be able to use those in lieu of cash when you're making a transaction, right? And it just ends up being a savings for you. For us, next year we launch free Wi-Fi on all of our planes, and you have to be an Advantage member to have access to free Wi-Fi. It's free to sign up, so it's really easy, and you can do it on the plane. But once you do that, there's a little bit more information flowing back to us about you that will help us ultimately do this better. So there's just a lot of work going on to try to make it worth someone's time to actually give us a little more information.
Jeff, how do you think about protecting infrequent trips?
Yeah, I think for us it comes down to segmenting the consumer, and really at the point of purchasing, being able to identify that this consumer is in this particular segment. And the more data we can get from our partners about the trip, about the person traveling, the more we can tailor the message, the product to what a person's buying. An example would be if you see a family of 4 traveling internationally, the product that we offer and how we're going to message it, maybe we're going to emphasize you're going to check a bag, so baggage coverage there, or you're going to protect devices if you have kids with the iPad. So things, just messaging different helps to customize, and that's not complicated data to get. We just need it to be passed in the booking path. And so that's where we're focused on data, is really getting that segmenting as low so we can understand the buying habits of consumers that look like each other. And the more granular that we can get, the better. I think we're really interested in trying to get more data from consumers where they don't buy. A lot of the times we can't identify a particular consumer in one channel. They may be buying a particular product, and maybe in another channel they're not. And we'd love to understand more why that is, because a lot of times in other channels we're not getting declines. We don't know when they didn't buy. We know when they did buy, and so we're really focused on understanding that as well.
Sure, when it's only a few trip occasions per year, if they're going to another provider or another channel, that certainly complicates it further. When does this all become creepy? When are we concerned that the data collection is working against itself, or the leveraging of data for more tailored or personalized offers starts to work against itself?
Well, I think consumers are quite clear about that line, and so we watch to see opt-outs, right? When do people start writing us to say, I want you to go delete my data? How often is that happening? What's driving that to happen? So I don't think we have to sit around and wonder, have we crossed, I absolutely try not to cross that line, but if if we do bump up against it, we get a very strong signal back from our customer base that this has gone a little too far and I actually don't want you to do this. So we just need to listen to customers. They'll tell us the answer to that.
There's another question from the audience.
Hey, Jeff, so you and I must have been on the same wavelength. I was getting ready. Oh, the Jen Lee, president of Travel Planners International.
Hey, Jen.
And thank you for your sponsorship of everything. We appreciate it. I've been here for the last couple of days listening to everybody talk about data and the data that's collected once they've hit your site, they leave your site. You just said something that I'm curious about. We have to start talking about the data that is not on your site. I come from the travel advisor side, the agency side. They decided not to take a trip, maybe with you, maybe they took it with somebody else. Why is that? Can you share a little bit about how your companies and any other company is tapping into the travel advisor knowledge base of understanding what's motivating a traveler to travel? Because we're all, and Barry Diller is getting ready to speak, and this is in his book.
Yeah.
Data after data, it's before. So thank you for the opportunity to ask you that question.
Yeah, it's a great one, Jen, and really hard to do. As I mentioned, particularly when you've got the same consumer that might be shopping in different channels, understanding that consumer, where they've been shopping before, when they didn't buy. That's the thing that we struggle with the most. We can see it in the e-commerce path. We can see it when they bought an airline ticket. But knowing whether they were considering the trip or not, that is a real challenge to do, and kind of the next step of data. And to relate that back to the question too, I think that as you're collecting this data, whether it's in the path or before the path, or as people are searching for trips, I think you got to still look at the ROI, which is a point that you brought up, that before you get creepy, the ROI is going to get pretty thin. And so I do think that we can get pretty effective in the data that we're using to affect the sale, to convince the user to go on a particular, or the customer to go on a particular trip. And that's going to happen a long time before you get creepy. But that's a big challenge. Thank you.
Sindhu, last word.
Yeah, I think it's trying to get all the sources where you can get data from. You know, to your point, Jen, yes, travel advisors are important. Maybe we're not tapping enough into them to say where the information is sitting, and maybe you're having better conversations with customers to be able to gather that data, right? So we need to identify all sources from where we can get that data and be able to personalize conversations and come up with personalized offers for customers. So maybe these are unknown areas where we really haven't tapped into, but I think we need to explore where else can we get this kind of information from.
Sindhu, Neil, Jeff, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.